How many people, you start thinking about the end times and biblical scriptures and things like that, sometimes it gets a bit confusing. You begin to wonder about the elements that nobody will talk about. It gets a bit confusing. Everything has already been clarified. One of the problems is, as men, when we present things, sometimes we become overbearing. We think you want to know this or think you want to know that. The truth is, piece by piece, we need to cover everything in detail. That means you're going to have to bring a pen, notepad. Now, the notepad will just be for your verification so that you can write your notes out. Verify what was said. Go back and look for yourselves. Research the research. But don't research it by YouTube. One of the best ways to research is to go to an encyclopedia. Just look in there. Somebody says, is the dust wormwood? Well, you know what? That dust is iron-based. And do you know what iron ore? Do you know what that does to plant life in the water? It was said in Egypt that when they tried to drink the water, right, they immediately threw it up. Here in the Americas, I've been doing a lot of digging in the Americas, especially in Ohio, where they're digging up some artifacts underneath people's feet. And that place in Mexico and California and certain other places are digging up a lot of finds. The deeper they go, the more advanced civilizations become. They're pretty deep right now. In all those cases, that iron ore causes the waters to kill the fish. The waters become highly acidic. You cannot drink them. As soon as you get the water down, you throw it back up again. It'll have you, that stuff will make you regurgitate for weeks. You drink 1 cup and you're going to be regurgitating for a week. It was laced with an acidic property that would eat through everything, which just destroyed plant life. It was in the rains. So whatever lands of dust didn't quite reach, the rain did. It was in the snow. It was snowing blood, raining blood, right? That's what they call blood, was that iron-based water. It's all in the soils. Everywhere it's in the soils. The truth was always in front of our eyes. The problem is the interpretation of that truth. There's been a bunch of lies, propaganda. Well, actually, it brings me back to, I think, 92 of those 200 civilizations specifically said that people talk like their governments. That means most people had adopted a political way of speech. That's what it means. That's what we're doing now. We make every topic a political topic. We copy what the government does. We copy their arguments. We don't even know we're doing it, but that's exactly what we do. We're becoming cronies of their topics, pawns in their hands. I'm kind of spoiled in that way. You would be too if you saw television enemies laughing and joking when the camera's not seeing them together. When you see the people who are supposed to be reporting the news responsibly, looking in a mirror and rehearsing how they're going to state things to people with angry tones to see if it's believable or not. When you start saying things like that, well, then you know that mankind is pouring a lot of money into making the populace not see what actually is. And for the most part, the populace is engaged so much in this political nonsense, they cannot see what's happening all around them. They believe the lie. Anybody who argues the subjects of men are believing the lie. That's all you have to remember. If you find yourself in an argument about the subjects of men, you drank the Kool-Aid. That's all you need to remember. They create these arguments, these things, and then if you argue about them, you're believing what they're saying. If you can remember that, turn away from it, you'll never be duped again. Because they know they have you. The verification of social media. It's just like, it'll change, and don't let your feelings get hurt. But I see about 80% of the people they got your hook, line, and sinker. They do that by way of your support. That always starts by having you to be empathetic to somebody's needs up there. That's a designed system. A designed system, a lot of the people in that system are innocent players. But I'm telling you right now, the real vipers are running that program. They put it all together, and they take innocent people and recruit them. They get innocent people because you can discern when somebody is phony or not. So they get innocent people, and for the most part, many people have condemned innocent men and women, thus causing you to be guilty. If they can make you guilty of condemning those who are innocent, you have no spiritual authority in that area. That means you can no longer interfere by way of your prayers because you're acting in contradiction to the words of Christ. Therefore, your word cannot be honored by the Lord. He said he would not honor that. You're doing a lot of people like that. Every time you engage, you become powerless. Remember that. On the opposite side of the spectrum, every time you obey the Lord, you do not replicate, nor do you argue the points of men. But your mouth and your heart is full of the gospel. That's what happens when you follow Christ. What you talk about the most is what you're full of. Remember that. The Bible says, out of the mouth flows the abundance of the heart. What you talk about the most is what you're full of. And for the most part, a lot of people talk about politics. What's going wrong? What's doing this and what's doing that? That's because they're full of the world. You can see what they're full of by their speech. Once a person begins to, and they talk about the gospel all the time, they're not distracted by that stuff of men anymore. That's when they sober up and no depression can overcome them. Depression comes by believing lies. Joy comes believing the truth. Most people have saddened and depressed hearts, not because of what they see, it's because of how they see. And how you see is reflected by what you truly believe. And what you truly believe, well, that's going to be curved a bit by what you hear, what you expose yourself to, what you allow yourself to see and hear, what you've allowed into your world. Everything you see and hear becomes part of your world. You have to deal with it. I give you a challenge. You want to clear your mind? If you really want to clear your mind, give social media a halt for 3 days. That's all. The majority of you may not be able to do that. Number one, because you feel it will make no difference. And number two, you feel it's not doing anything to you in the first place. Until you give something up, you'll never know what it was doing to you. Once you give something up, that's when you find out what you've been missing. Anyway, folks, is anything that comes from anybody else, now they may have some of the same documents, highly unlikely that I have. Their presentation may talk about some of the subjects, but I'm telling you now, this doesn't bounce off anybody else's research. This is all of COT. That means we'll assume all stuff for that. Somebody says the COT chat, social media. Yes, if you gossip. If you expose yourself to the thoughts of others on a continual basis, it sure is. And when I say back off from social media for about 3 days, I mean back off from social media for about 3 days. When you do that, that's when you find out what you're missing. What you're missing, you can then evaluate. see where that's coming from, because many people will miss their social media. They'll feel like they're out of contact with the world, which should immediately let them know they have a hunger for the world still. And they can pray and deal with that issue. Listen, folks, even our conversation about the battle, spiritual battle, there are many people who would follow Christ that have become spiritually nullified. Do you guys understand? They have become powerless in the face of opposition. And a lot of us, I always throw myself into the bunch, a lot of us would be sent back on our feet again. Nobody in the body of Christ should be spiritually nullified. And what it means is there's an area of your life that's a point of hypocrisy in God's eyes. Thus, he cannot answer certain things of you right now. See, if those ways continue, and this is one of the hopes of darkness, if those ways continue, it will lead to your spiritual death. Well, guess what? As your brother in Christ, I'm here to put a halt to that, no matter the cost, to let you know that you're entitled to be a child of the kingdom. You're blessed. You're truly blessed. To let you know that nothing is lost. Nothing is lost. But to also let you know that the way of your future is in the Lord's hands and not yours. One of the most exciting times in a person's life is when they're young and they have a birthday, or they're waiting on Christmas or something like that. In other words, a time when you are to be gifted. Do you know what makes those times real special? Anybody? It's because you don't know the process involved. And you don't know what you're getting. You don't know all of the processing. You don't know what you're getting. So you're forced to wait. You're forced to wait on something good. Not something bad, something good. You know it's good. It makes for a very exciting time. But it can also cause you to become impatient. If you become impatient, you'll start doing things you shouldn't do, and you will ruin the whole thing. Spiritually, that's what many of us have done. And it's not too late to turn all of that around. The work we have to do must be of a quick work. I'll say it again. There are certain things under observation even right now. Have you looked at the world in truth? Let me describe it for you. There are serious things happening in the world. There are real casualties. And it seems like no one really cares. That's what it seems like. But let me give you the truth of the matter. The truth is, there's something being seen that makes Afghanistan look like nothing. There's something being observed, and people are truly frightened. We're not talking about any person. Great tactical minds are frightened from all countries. Some countries, that truth has been hidden from. They seem like they don't care because they've been doing something else. Can you imagine waking up one morning and your refrigerator stopped working? Think about that. You wake up one morning, your refrigerator's not working, and all the food in your refrigerator is defrosting. That would begin your day pretty bad, right? But then all of a sudden, your neighborhood catches on fire. I tell you right now, if your neighborhood was on fire, you would not care about that refrigerator nor the contents inside, would you? But if a person could only see you and your reactions, and only the refrigerator, they would assume you're just upset and the refrigerator is the reason for it. If they were to ever see the fire, they would truly understand why you are the way you are. Something like that is happening in the world right now. You're looking at people, but you cannot see the whole story. I tell you, they have weightier matters. Because you're looking at the life and death of all people. Some are even calculating the survivability of this whole planet. Because they all understand that it's only a matter of a short time. And like hands gripped around our planet, so will it shake. When the stars come out of their appointed paths, astronomers all over the world are going to notice. Because you won't really notice the change on Earth at first, but the stars are going to be out of position. When the sun is canted 10 degrees from where it is right now, that happens on a consistent basis, then we're going to be in trouble. When we go through all 4 seasons in 1 month, you'll understand. The days are going to be shorter also. We're going to lose about 5 days, 5 to 7 days out of the year. That means every single day is going to be different. That's why they had to have everything digital. No analog clocks. If you have an analog clock, it's based upon forces in physics. So they need something to override that. GPS machines that logic is based on timing. You cannot have a clock out of sync and expect GPS to work, even with redundancy. So digital communications was the way to go forward. That way you could adjust everybody's clocks in the hopes that they would not notice a few minutes missing every single day, like what we go through now. The skies will no doubt change. Incursions will always come, but the dust is coming. With that dust, it's going to come fires. That'll be the beginning of the change of this planet. The doom of Revelation unfolding. By the way, a lot of people are confused in Revelation because they don't know if they're going to be here all throughout everything happening. I hear people all the time, well, I'm going to be here. They say, I'm going to be here after the beast and after this. They don't know that. There are lots of people dying right now from small things. And when we start talking about the giant viruses that have been on this earth for a very long time and what they actually do, I think it's going to open your eyes to some things. Do you know that COVID-19 and other viruses are hunting down some of these giant viruses? A virus is not alive or dead. Just so you know, it can do nothing of itself. It normally hijacks another cell. There's a special name for giant viruses. Well, they found out what they do. Giant viruses are responsible for changing the DNA of people. They're in everybody. They're in you too. You could not live without them, and it seems like they take their instruction from something else, but they change the subtle DNA changes in the body have helped us adapt to what we live in today, like the higher forms of radiation no one mentions. A person of the 70s could not live in the atmosphere today. Do you guys know that? You just don't know why. It's not something man did. No. Something your father's doing. As far as the times and the people who brag about going through all of Revelation, none of us are promised tomorrow, therefore no one can brag. The Lord told us many would not be alive at that time, and indeed, the rest of an older generation is going home. We all know this, and nothing will take place until they're gone. But I'll tell you this, when that generation is gone, I hope that you can wake up extraordinarily quick. There's an entire generation leaving. The Lord is merciful. And if you ever talk to that generation, they don't have the mind to live and see what's about to happen. And the Lord is merciful. I give you a mystery. With your elders, there are certain things they cannot comprehend. They cannot comprehend it because God did not give them understanding of it. That means they're not to endure it. The other part of that mystery is the young folks. There are certain attributes and energies young people have. You can always tell what the future generation is going to be like by looking at its children. And these children that are coming out today, they are who they are, but they are extremely independent. Have you noticed? They are fiercely competitive. Have you noticed? Life to them is very different than life is to us. We probably may not admit it, but there are things that we cannot deal with of the younger generation. There are things we don't understand. We have effectively become our own parents. We don't understand their dress, their haircuts, what drives them. It's happening again. And the days are coming. But the Lord told us spiritually about this last generation, those who will see the fulfillment of prophecy all over the world, that generation would not pass until everything is completed. You're the generation who's set up to see everything by way of optics all over the earth and in the heavens. You can, not only can you see what happens to other people, but you can also see what happens in space. You can also see what happens underneath the ocean. There was always a generation coming who would have this capability. And it was that generation that would see the undoing of all things, the true breakdown, the real end times. You're the ones. That's why you were born the way you were born. That's why you have something in your spirit. And there's a hunger for one type of information. You can talk about every piece of information out there, but what actually causes you to be alive again is when you begin to talk about those events that people will not readily discuss. And something has been in the air, hasn't it? Causing people to shy away from that subject. Oh, don't talk about the end of the world. Don't talk about, those things that are coming upon the earth. You were born for that. You expect that. You already know about that. You may deny it in view of other people. The Lord put that in you for a reason. You are to know about it. You're not to shut up about it. That's what makes you alive inside. And haven't you noticed that when you try to get away from that subject and be normal, you start to die inside, don't you? You may not tell anybody, but you do. You're deeply disturbed inside. Listen to me, the Lord knows what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. Folks, you got a lot to cover when you say that was just some of it. A lot of historical data we need to uncover. I mean, lots of it. We're going to bring it to bear in here. I can tell you now, while you may think it's going to be, you may think it's going to be exciting, it comes with a lot of conviction. The world is talking about spirits and UFOs. But we need to understand the challenges, and the vultures and the messengers that always precede coming events upon the earth. Once you understand the nature of these events, you can better see them. It'll confirm inside you. Don't worry. The Lord put a truth in you that nobody can take away. And once you see that truth, it'll confirm deep within you. God will add to your strength this sharing of the gospel with others. And folks, please remember, it is the gospel we share. The gospel. That's what we take into all the earth is the gospel. That's what we're commissioned to do. And that gospel is the Lord's gospel. That word gospel means good news. The good news of Jesus Christ. Gospel of Jesus Christ. Just so you know. But I hope that you are spiritually in place. Because although people don't want to hear it, these times are upon us. I'll say it one more time. Men are observing what they can do nothing about right now. They are observing it. And it will accomplish what it's sent forth to accomplish. Whatever it is.